Hey guys, it's Mike Nardi here. This is the third video in my YouTube video series showing you how to make money on Fiverr. It's September 26th today, and so far this month, I've made almost $3,000 doing Fiverr in my spare time. It's been awesome. The focus of today's video is going to show you how to create and publish a gig on Fiverr that'll help you rank highly on Fiverr's search and sell more of your orders. All right, and with that, we're gonna get right into it.
All right, everyone, before we get into it, I just want to remind you that I'm going to be putting out more content, helpful best practices, and tutorial videos about Fiverr and how to be successful on Fiverr over the next little while. So if you want to stay on top of it and make sure you have access and are notified each time I put out a new video, make sure you subscribe. Okay, now getting into the meat and potatoes of this video, creating a gig. So the first thing you're going to want to do is click the Create a New Gig button. I've already pre-filled out one of these just to save us some time. So the first thing you really need to think about here is your gig title. This is really important as you want to make sure it's as easy as possible for potential buyers that are browsing Fiverr to read your title, immediately understand what it is that you're offering. So it needs to be simple and clear. So here's an example of one of my gigs. So it's for a product description gig. So I will write product descriptions for your e-commerce website. This title is pretty strong in my opinion. As a reader, and if you're browsing Fiverr, this tells you exactly what I do. So I write product descriptions that you can use for e-commerce. You'll also notice that there's two main keywords included here: product descriptions and e-commerce website, both of which are categories on Fiverr and something that's pretty likely that people might be searching for when looking at Fiverr and trying to find gigs or people to do gigs for them. If you're having trouble coming up with one of these for the service that you decided you wanted to offer, refer back to the list of competitors you made after watching my last video. Or if you haven't seen that video, just do a quick Fiverr search for the keyword that you're trying to rank against and see what comes up on page 1. Review the gigs your top competitors are offering and see if you can use their gig titles as a benchmark for how you should structure yours. Next, you need to fill out the category and subcategory that your gig falls under. Make sure that you're accurately representing your gig here, because a lot of people actually find gigs via these homepage menus on Fiverr. If you show up in the wrong category or page, people might not find you. If, for example, the industry you're working in does not have a category outlined, just do a quick search for the keyword that you're trying to rank against and try to figure out what categories others in the space are using. So in the case of product descriptions, just click into them and take a look at what categories people are putting themselves in. That'll help if there's not a category already defined. The last thing you'll need to do on this main page for creating your gig is identifying up to 5 tags to help people find your gig. Now, when thinking about what tags to include, in this example, I used mainly single keywords, but try to think about what you would type into the Fiverr search bar to find a service like the service you're offering. Use the most common and natural sounding keywords or phrases for these tags. This will definitely help you rank a little bit higher in the Fiverr search engine. Now, the next thing you need to do when creating your gig is to define your packages and how you're going to price them. I recommend offering 3 packages so that you can offer your most basic, lowest cost service, and then also a standard and a premium package. When thinking about what to include and how to price your standard or premium, you need to break it down as services that offer either a higher value to your buyer, something that requires more work or time spent on your end to complete. And also, when you're pricing these things, try to position them almost as volume discounts, right? So in this example, I have 1 product description, 3 product descriptions, or 5. The cost for a single is $50, 3 is $140, and 5 is $215. It's important to price it in that way as well, because when you get into a pricing negotiation with certain buyers, this gives you another leg to stand on to push back. When someone asks for a discount, you can revert back to your gig and say, hey, I've already thought about this. My discounts are built into my gig. We can talk about this in greater detail in a later video, and I will be creating another video because there's a whole strategy and many things that you can think about when pricing and building out your packages, because you really want to make sure you're aligning with what the market is dictating and what other sellers are doing on Fiverr. So you're going to fill out your different packages, your days to complete. Always make sure you're giving yourself enough runway to complete these orders. The last thing you want is to get hit with a negative rating or to be ranked that you have a late delivery on Fiverr. So you're going to put in any other information relevant to your gigs. As mentioned earlier, your pricing of your different packages. One thing that you really need to make sure you're taking advantage of, and it's a great way to upsell and create more expensive engagements with your potential clients, is by offering gig extras. So I can't tell you how many gigs I've done where a $100 or so gig has turned into a $200 plus gig by using gig extras. The reality is that people really don't know what they don't know. If you can think of some key tips or best practices that you could provide to your buyers in the form of extras that would complement what your gig normally includes, that would demand an additional fee and a higher cost to the buyer, and people pay for that. People like to be shown what to do. So gig extras are a way for you to take out any guesswork or additional considerations people might want to do when purchasing a gig. The most common one that I almost always include on all of my gigs is extra fast delivery. So I've outlined delivery timelines based on my workload and also the length of time it would take for me to reasonably deliver and complete a project. Some people don't want to wait that long, and that's fine, but charge them for it. If people want you to cut a 10-day delivery to 2 days, there's a cost associated with that. You have to push things on your plate further down your priority list, and they should be the ones paying for it. In the case of this gig, additional focus keywords can demand, a little bit of extra money. If they want you to put together a research pamphlet on their competitors, sure, do that too. And I always charge extra for additional revisions. Now, this is something that you might need to set expectations with your buyers about, but I include one free revision at all of my orders, and believe me, people will ask for revisions. I include in my FAQ that only one revision is included per order so that you don't fall into a situation where a buyer is really wasting your time asking for dozens of revisions, essentially getting free work out of you. So what I do, anytime a buyer needs more than one basic revision, they're going to have to pay for each extra. That way, I'm holding them to their end of the bargain so they don't try to work me for some free work. And on my end, I know that I'm not going to be bogged down by an order that I just can't get my buyer to complete for me. The next thing you need to do, and arguably the most important part of your gig, this, in my opinion, will help you rank the highest and also will do most of the heavy lifting when it comes to convincing your buyers to work with you, is your description. So this is a little touch and go, right? There's a lot of things you need to think about and do when building a successful gig description. The first is sounding like a human. There are so many gigs on Fiverr that sound just very mechanical, spammy. People don't like working with people like that. So take the time, or if you're not really too good with words, hire someone, get one of your friends to do it. Write a description that sounds conversational. You are a person and you're talking to another person. You want to work together and let them know that. Make sure you're describing your service in the gig, and most importantly, pack it with keywords and phrases. Now this could be the hardest part, right? Because some people get carried away sacrificing how the text reads for how many keywords are in them. And this is where the touch and go part comes in. You might need to do some trial and error work and rework these descriptions to make it sound just right. But if you look at this gig description, I mentioned product descriptions or product pages many times. There's 1, 2, 3, just in the first paragraph. So I think this is a really strong gig description, and you should do something along the same lines for yours. Test it out, see how it's working, and tweak it as you need to. Next are gig requirements. These are very important, both for you to make sure that you have everything you need to complete this order, but also very important for the buyer and you, as it's your last line of defense for weeding out buyers who might not fully understand your service. You want to make sure that you're both on the same page to make sure that expectations are set and you're working towards the same goal. This will help you avoid late deliveries, multiple revisions that are outside of the initial scope, and most importantly, negative reviews. Having clear and relevant requirement questions helps the buyer understand what you need from them to deliver successfully, and helps you put the responsibility of being a qualified buyer back on the buyer. This is really good for you. It'll save you a lot of time in your pre-order discussions with buyers, as the requirements will do a lot of the heavy lifting for making sure that this is the right buyer for you and you are the right seller for them. Now, the last step before you can launch your gig is by adding a photo to the gallery. So all of my gigs follow a very similar design theme. It's just a personal preference of mine, kind of to keep things on brand, we'll call it. I created this myself, but you can use Fiverr. There's a million people who will do this for a couple bucks for you, or just use Microsoft Paint and make something that looks nice and tells people what you do. And that's it.
All right, I'm back. So with that, I think I've taken you through all the steps you need to think about to get your gig posted on Fiverr and give it a fighting chance to get seen and purchased by your potential buyers. Now, there have been a couple of things that I mentioned in this video that I'll be elaborating on in future videos. Things like how to price your gigs accordingly to the market, and also things around negotiation and how to win over your buyers if they have a lot of questions or if they're not necessarily sold based on your gig alone. And that's all I had for you today. So thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment. Looking forward to getting more of these videos out to you guys. Cheers.